Hey, what's up, guys? Dylan Johnson from Soccer Mag here, and welcome back to another episode of Mixing with the DJs. I'm once again joined by my fellow DJ Dylan Jack, and today we will be doing a review of Gameweek 7 of the Premier League. Bittersweet because it's another international break, and I think we're all sick and tired of, it's been almost 2.5, 3 months of the season. It's the third one already. We've only played 7 games, but we'll help you guys get through it. What was your overall view of the weekend of the game week?
It's quite some very interesting results. I think some of the top teams having to fight. I think it's really becoming an interesting title race now between Liverpool, Arsenal and City. I didn't expect Liverpool to be finishing after 7 games, in all honesty, to be top of the table. Obviously City without Rodri now, having to cope with that, and they are looking a little bit more fragile. But it's all heating up now. I think after 7 games you can get a better idea than after sort of 4 or 5 games. Now you can get a better idea of what sort of each team is going to have to do in the season.
I agree, and I think also now we can speak about Liverpool first because they were the first game.
Yes.
As soon as Liverpool come back from the international break, it is absolute carnage. I think their 10 games are in there, including Champions League or all competitions. It's Chelsea, Arsenal, Man City, Brighton 2 or 3 times, Real Madrid, Spurs in there as well, if I'm not mistaken. That if they can get through that rough, still in the title race, that's massive.
Yes.
Because that's literally the worst games possible.
Just,
but I think talking about Saturday, there are some positives to take from the game. I think the first half Liverpool were really in control. One aspect was the finishing that was lacking. And I think in the second half, just fell into a bit of that sloppiness, giving Palace chances. I think Palace had 1 shot in the first half and then 9 or 10 in the second. And just that difference in control is kind of worries me. And we spoke about it, but Virgil van Dijk was very lucky to not give away a penalty there. And drawing 1-1 to Palace from a position of such superiority to then throw points away there would have been very, very poor. But I think take the points, move on. Alisson injury is worrying. I think it's getting to a point now where he missed 10 games last season. He's already been injured. He just came back from an injury. It's his first game back, if I'm not mistaken, in the Premier League. And now he's going to be out for a while again. I think Alisson's probably, he's arguably the best goalkeeper in the Premier League. He's one of the best in the world. But it's getting to a point now where you can't have your number one missing 10 to 15 games a season. That's ridiculous. He's a goalkeeper. He's meant to be there every week. I think that's also the worrying thing going into these games, not having Alisson. As much as Keller is a great backup, he's not Alisson, and he's going to be needed in these games. I think interesting times and quietly just moving about the business.
I think that's probably the most important thing, is that it wasn't necessarily a 3-0 or 5, quietly got the win. You're now sitting top of the table. Liverpool, they've quietly edged their way up there. And they haven't done so with fireworks and heavy metal football. They've done it with, I think, a lot more control sometimes. Some of Klopp's best teams did have an element of control through their heavy metal football, but I think there's a bit more composure about this Slots Liverpool, which is, even for me as a United fan, as painful as it is to say, it has impressed me the way that Slot has sort of come in and immediately, even though he hasn't been able to add 6 or 7 players into this, of players that he may have formerly coached into this team, like another former Dutchman, another Dutchman that's coaching in the Premier League, he still managed to get them playing a different sort of style that's given them a bit more control in games, which is really, really impressive.
And I think we've seen Liverpool have got the best defense in the Premier League this season, and they've a couple goals off. They've got the best goal difference, but they're not that far away from Man City and Arsenal when it comes to goals. And I think when Liverpool controlled games under Jurgen Klopp, it was more like an overwhelming force that was just constantly, 100% in your face. The press was insane. The counterattacks were insane. You could have an offensive corner and be just as at much risk as conceding. Whereas it's a lot slower, but it's like slow poison, which is a lot. I think it's a lot more now successful, or it's a lot more effective to not conceding and then scoring goals. So that's one thing I think we can take from that, which has been very positive. I think Arne Slot's got the best record now for the first 10 games as a Liverpool manager, which I don't think anyone really expected.
No.
But like I said, quietly going about business, under the radar, everyone's talking about other teams. So hopefully it continues. I'd rather them only talk about us in the last week than now, up until then.
Yeah.
Next up, Arsenal versus Southampton. And Southampton had us dreaming for about 5 minutes. But then again, I think Arsenal just too strong.
Yeah.
I think they could have scored more goals. Saka was amazing. I think Havertz, he's really cemented himself now as a proper lethal Premier League striker. And I think even the subs came on. They did well. I think overall, like, another great performance by Arsenal. I'm not sure what your thoughts are.
Yeah, it's pretty similar. I mean, Southampton, they had us hoping that it wasn't for very long, and Arsenal, showing that sort of champions mentality, that they can go for the title, showing why they can go for the title, because maybe previous Arsenal sides might have collapsed under this kind, even against a team like Southampton. I don't think Southampton are impressive at all. They don't have a great attack. They're good enough to, they scored 1 goal, but, they're always leaking. One of the few teams that have leaked 3 goals to United. Arsenal are just so good, and Saka is just one of the players of the Premiership so far. It's just been incredible watching that guy.
I think he's got like 7 assists or something already.
He's incredible, absolutely brilliant winger that Arsenal have there. And Martinelli getting a very, a much needed goal. I think his form was sort of struggling a little bit. I think
for the past 18 months, he really hasn't.
Yeah, he hasn't really contributed. So that'll probably give him a lot of confidence. And as you say, Kai Havertz has just reinvented himself or rediscovered himself at Arsenal. I mean, he came from Chelsea, people didn't really know what this guy was all about. He had been used in so many different ways at Chelsea. He used as a winger, as a number 10, as a forward, and it just never worked out for him over there. And now it's nice to see that he's actually properly rediscovered what he's good at, and he's doing that so well and so efficiently. He is honestly one of the best strikers in the Premier League right now.
And I think also going back to Kai Havertz, it just felt similar to Timo Werner at Chelsea, where they had these amazing young players, but none of them were ever played in the right position.
Yeah.
And their team just didn't feel like it was built to get the best out of them. But Havertz at Arsenal now, the team is not built around him, but it's getting the best out of him 100%. The system suits him so well. The craziest game of the weekend, which is probably a bit unexpected, Brentford versus Wolves. 5-3, 4-2 at half time.
Yeah.
Wow, I think it was also, it's almost kind of funny how it was 4-2 in the first half, then 4-2 to like the 85th minute or something crazy like that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, got a goals bonanza in this one. Wolves, again, they're showing that they can score goals, but they just can't prevent them going in. They have one of the worst goals conceded and they're sitting, but that's the reason why they're sitting bottom of the Premier League.
Which is surprising because
they've got quality. They've got
the teams that are
quality.
sitting above them, you're thinking of Southampton, you're thinking of Leicester, Everton, even Ipswich. You're like, how are Wolves below these guys?
Yeah, they're not as, in terms of what you see on, I know football's not played on TV, but in terms of what you see, what they've got better quality than those that are sitting, but they just can't stop the goals pouring in. Then they're going to have to find a way to do that after this international breakouts. I think they're already 3 points cut adrift from safety, so they can't afford to keep leaking goals. But Brentford, are just one of those teams that they have the forwards. If you give them those opportunities, they will take them. They are clinical in that way.
And I think also Wolves are just conceding every type of goal. It's not like you can just say, they're terrible at defending set pieces, but they're good, open game. They are conceding in every possible way. So there's a lot of work to be done there for Gary O'Neill. And it's not really the attacker's fault, because if you're scoring 3 goals and you're getting 0 points, you're like, what more can we do? Exactly. Moving on to the next game. Leicester getting a shocking win against Bournemouth. I didn't watch this game personally, but that's a massive 3 points for Leicester.
Yeah, it's huge.
I think we both thought Bournemouth were going to not destroy them, but at least get the 3 points in this one.
I also thought that was my prediction. Was, at worst for Bournemouth would have been a draw, but I felt that this Bournemouth should have taken the 3 points in this one. But Leicester, they that's sort of very, very important 3 points for them in terms of that battle at the bottom of the table. They're going to need that come the end of the season, though. Also, I mean, Leicester actually, they haven't necessarily been conceding a lot of goals. I don't think they've always sort of lost sort of 1-0 or 2-1. Sort of narrowly, but this time coming out on the right end of a result, which is good for them.
Another one where we had hoped for a few minutes, Man City versus Fulham.
Yes, yeah.
Adama Traore, he actually was wearing a Man City shirt under the Fulham shirt. The 3 1-on-1s were just the same shot every time. Exactly. It was the first 2 were the same shot, straight at Edison. Then I think the third one he put over the crossbar somehow.
Yes. Yeah. But that's the story of Adama Traore's career. That's it in a nutshell. He's always been this fantastic player outside the box, great at picking up the ball, great at driving at defenses. He's big, he's strong, he's very, very quick. And he's a great dribbler. He's great at relieving defensive pressure when you give him the ball and he inside your own half and he just zooms past defenders. But when it comes, as soon as he gets close to the box, he's always been pretty average at best, and no managers or coaches managed to sort of develop him past that, whether he's been at Barcelona, wherever he's been, no coaches managed to get that sort of that extra something out of him where he can consistently put in good crosses or good passes into the box or consistently finish well. It's just been his entire career.
And it's so disappointing because we want to see Man City drop points.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and they came so close. But a very good finish outside to make sure of it. I mean, Jeremy Doku's goal, that's Doku, cutting back, awesome finish from outside the box. Yeah.
And I think, again, for Man City, they're just going to also just want to keep the points coming, don't really care about the performance.
Yeah.
Because, again, they looked super vulnerable in this game. It's almost... It's spoken about because they are missing Rodri clearly. Their defense, they've conceding goals they don't usually concede. The amount of chances they conceded against Fulham, it just does, with Rodri, none of those happen.
Exactly.
So it's going to be, international break now. They'll probably regroup, but it's going to be interesting to see how they continue going into December because they are conceding way more goals than normal. I know it's only been 2 games, but I think in general throughout the season, it does seem like they're conceding more goals than usual.
Yes,
West Ham versus Ipswich, another thrilling game that we didn't really see coming by the same scoreline. 4-1 West Ham. They found their form.
Yeah.
Ipswich, I think, realistically, they're not going to go unbeaten for like 5 or 6 games in a row. But for them to lose 4-1 was a bit crazy.
Yes.
But West Ham, all their goals were good. Mikel Antonio, I think, had an insane game. Jared Bowen.
Yes.
I think also that's probably one of their better defensive performances. They weren't leaking 3 or 4 goals.
No.
I think great win for West Ham. Ipswich just move on.
Yeah, I think that sums it up pretty well, yeah.
And then the mighty Toffees versus Newcastle.
Sure.
Anthony Gordon stinker, Jordan Pickford, man of the match.
Yeah,
I think that was pretty much the narrative of the game.
That was. Newcastle had their chances, didn't take them. Everton holding out there. Again, a very, very good performance from Jordan Pickford. And that's, again, very, very important, could be an important point for Everton come the end of the season. Like those 3 points that Leicester get, they all tally up in the end. Everton now, with this draw and, getting that 2-1 win against Palace last week, that's pretty huge. Yeah, 4 points in 2 games for a team that was really, really
that was
struggling.
0 in 5.
That was 0 in 5 like that. That's huge for them. Yeah,
and I think a positive for them, biggest positive is clean sheets.
Yes, yeah.
I think if it's their first one of the season.
Yes.
And they also had a couple good chances to score. Dominic Calvert-Lewin had a couple chances, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Doucouré's offside goal. But I think it's looking positive. It seems they've kind of settled now.
Yeah.
Now, your talking points, Aston Villa versus Manchester United, take the floor. What do you got to say?
Oh, wow. Yeah, almost for all the build-up that this game had. Everyone was talking about Villa's win against Bayern in midweek. What a result for Villa that was. That was a massive performance from them, a huge result. And it almost... they were talking about how Villa were going to just rampage through United. It got to be lucky if it's 3-0, sort of thing. It was almost a non-event of a game. With all the focus over Erik ten Hag's this was the game that was meant to save Erik ten Hag's Manchester United career, and it was a nothing game.
Just fizzled out.
Just really fizzled. Neither team. I know Villa had their injuries; they were without Onana, so they weren't at their strongest, and then they lost their centre. They lost Konza during the match.
But you guys lost Maguire early as well.
Yeah, United lost Maguire. I mean, that's the other thing, and I'll get onto that. But I didn't see him, Erik ten Hag, starting with a defensive partnership of Johnny Evans and Harry Maguire in the game that was meant to save his career when he's gone and he spent money on 2 ex-Ajax defenders. But yeah, it was a very nothing game. Villa had a couple of chances on the break. Where they managed to carve something through with Ollie Watkins up front. But other than that, I couldn't say that Onana was overburdened with saves that he had to make 1 or 2, but it wasn't like he was facing 5, 6 or 7 shots.
Even when Duran came on and it was Watkins and Duran, there wasn't
much. I didn't really hear Duran's name during this game, which was, given the impacts that he's made this season, it surprising.
I mean, the commentators were hyping up every time we went to the bench.
Yes.
And then it was like, he's been given the signal by Unai Emery.
He comes on and he does nothing. And he's completely shut down by the 36-year-old Johnny Evans, who gets man of the match in this game. So, yeah, it was, in the wider spectrum, this shouldn't be used. If I was sitting on the United board, I'd almost wipe this game. You don't need to look at this game when it comes to analysing whether Erik ten Hag stays or goes. It was a very defensive performance from a manager that was under pressure. Other than those 2 Rashford, I think when Rashford cut back from driving in from the left, like he usually does from the left wing, United didn't really create anything. I thought Garnacho was particularly poor. We didn't hear Bruno's name.
Højlund didn't really do anything.
Højlund, I don't think, had a shot. And I can't necessarily blame him because he's just not being found by anyone else. People just aren't passing to him. So he just sort of stands man alone up front.
Even when Xerxes came on, I don't think...
Yeah, Xerxes came on last 15 minutes. He didn't manage to impact the game at all. I was surprised that he brought Anthony on instead of Ahmad.
I was also shocked.
I don't know what Ahmad's done so wrong. He's literally one of United's most creative players. The player that can facilitate a ball through to a striker. So striker Guido shot off, but he's sort of sat on the bench for the last 2 games, including that Porto game. And, I don't know what he's done wrong to deserve that. And Anthony, I mean, he came on again, he did a couple of good dribbles, but other than that, didn't really impact the game at all. Garnacho's decision-making poor. I thought Rashford was better than what he was against Porto defensively.
Until he lost his head.
And it just seemed like there was frustration with this United performance, that they couldn't really find a foothold in this game on attack. And that's why guys like Rashford were giving away fouls. I mean, you had Lindelof committing 2 fouls after he came off the bench, replaced Mazraoui. We don't know whether that was injury or rotation, as Ten Hag likes to call it. It's just... In terms of analyze, I don't think this is a game worth analysing in terms of Erik ten Hag's future. As I say, it was just a very it was a coach trying to save his career, putting 11 men behind the ball, ultra defensive, just trying to see out as what he can. And the fact that he didn't bring, what I would have done is taken Bruno off and brought Xerxes on to partner.
Because Bruno, in the past month or so.
Yeah, Bruno's literally, he's been, I don't know whether it's the system, I don't know whether it's instructions, I don't know whether it's he himself suffering from
fatigue because
he's played every game since he's come to United. He's literally been United's best player and now the captain. He's almost been undroppable, and he's often rushed himself back from injuries to make sure, to play for United. So it could be that as well, but he started the season very, very poorly, especially by his standards. He hasn't really, he had the free kick that hit the bar in this game, but other than that, his name wasn't really said. And he just seems to play on a different wavelength. Bruno's one of those guys that sort of thrives in the chaos. He loves it. He loves getting the ball and immediately splashing it out to a Rashford or Garnacho. He's not a guy that can really, I don't think, enjoys the sort of slower pace of games. I just think when it comes to Ten Hag's future, you're going to have to analyse the way United have started the season as a whole, which is the fact is that United have made their worst start to a Premier League season ever.
And I feel like wasn't last season
yes.
broken his own
and
record?
That's,
or someone
that
was
he
saying,
has literally broken his own record. Last season was the worst start to a season
record
ever.
breakers.
Exactly. There we go. Sitting 14th, you know, what is it? 2 wins in 7.
Conceded. I think they were saying 5 goals scored and then conceded.
8
also crazy. Yeah,
8 goals conceded. You know, the only team that has scored fewer than United is Southampton, and they're sitting with like Cameron Archer up front and an 18-year-old on the wing. So yeah, it's not looking good. And when you build that and you add that to the horror show that was last season, and you add in the fact that United's board have actually gone out and got Erik ten Hag players that were meant to, you know, settle quite quickly because they knew his system. They've gone out and they've got a Martinez. I know Martinez had his injury problems and he seems to have struggled to find his form since then. He was injured for a lot of last season, some bad injuries last season. But Lissandro Martinez was meant to be, you know, the leader of this back four. Then they went and got him Matthias de Ligt, again, a leader, guy who's played for 2 of the biggest clubs in Europe, guy who's captained Ajax as a teenager, knows Ten Hag, was part of one of Ten Hag's best teams, a crucial part of Erik ten Hag's best teams. You know, they went out and they got him Mazraoui, again, another ex-Ajax player. They've consistently reinforced his team. It's not like, even under the Glazers, he got consistent reinforcement.
Well, I think they said he spent close to
600 million and he's got about 12 or 13 players in. So it's not like he's been bereft of any signings.
It's not like David Moyes that was kind of shafted from the beginning.
Yeah, David Moyes got Fellaini, and that was when he was promised sort of, we're going to go for Cesc Fabregas and this and
they
that.
were saying like Gareth Bale
and there was apparently
bringing Ronaldo back.
Yeah, bringing Ronaldo back. That was the whole plan. That was probably the plan that was implemented by David Gill and Sir Alex Ferguson when they went. Obviously, Fergie retired, David Gill left, and sort of left a hole there. There's actually been a sporting structure for, especially this season, now that Ineos have taken over. Erik ten Hag has had a proper sporting structure above him. He's had guys like Jason Wilcox and Dan Ashworth in there working, trying to get him the right structure and get him the right players and facilitate a proper sort of coaching structure and coaching process, but it hasn't worked. And I think Ineos, if they're analysing this season and last season, put together with last season, which they should do this week, there's only one conclusion that they should come out to, which is it's not working.
It's regressing, if anything.
It's regressing. It's not going forward. United aren't playing better football than they did last season. They're maybe going backwards, if anything. And unfortunately, you know, European clubs change managers all the time. It's not pretty, but being a football manager is not a stable job. You're going to be changing clubs a whole lot. So I think Erik ten Hag is done. I just don't see him, if he is back in the dugout when United next play after the international break. There's big red flags there, I think. But if he is, this is the thing. If he is, then Ineos have to go full metal behind him. They have to say, listen, put out a statement, say, listen, we are backing this guy through thick and thin. It can't just be he's allowed to sort of slink back into the dugout and it's all silence.
Because this situation's also been made worse by the fact that they were so on the fence.
Yes, yeah.
And now they've made their decision, but if they back out now, why did you not do it 6 months ago?
Yes, why did you not do it before?
You've almost written off a season already.
Yeah.
7 games in.
Yeah.
Because you were unsure.
Yes.
And now you're paying for you're facing the consequences.
And look, I kind of sympathize in them in that it was a little bit of a rush process getting the guys into getting this whole sporting structure together, because Dan Ashworth had to be negotiated out of his Newcastle contract. There were issues with getting Barada in as CEO. There were, getting all these guys in. It took a bit of time, so I can sympathize with that, in that they didn't have the longest time to sort of analyze what Ten Hag was doing, and maybe they needed these first couple of months to make sure. But now that you're sure, save the season before it's completely over. There's still enough time and enough points available for United to catch up and make up this gap if they get the right guy in charge. But it needs to be made now, otherwise there's big problems.
So, anything else to add?
No. Nothing.
Okay.
I've spoken more about Ten Hag than I have the actual game, but that's the thing. This game had very little to talk about.
I mean, one positive we can say is that a week ago, sitting in these chairs, we didn't foresee United going unbeaten over the week.
Yes.
So that is
even though it was 2 draws.
2 points gained
Yes.
in the bigger scheme of things.
Yeah.
Chelsea versus Forest, another exciting game but low scoreline. But I guess Forest have been difficult to beat this season. They've only lost 1 game. Chelsea, I think, also could have won this game. But even when Forest went down to 10 men, still, I mean, Maresca was saying he was happy with the performance, but at the end of the day,
yeah, it's 2 draw points.
It's ironic a Liverpool fan saying you have to get 3 points against Forest at home, but I think you have to,
Yeah, you do. Liverpool fans would know that quite well. But yeah, what a crazy game this was. I mean, 13 minutes of overtime, red card. Forest could have snatched it right at the death, Jota getting a header, but I think the 2 keepers were probably the stars of the show.
Sells probably, I think he made like 8 or 9 saves, or probably it felt like it.
And it was similar with Sanchez in Chelsea's goal. So yeah, what a crazy game this was.
Now also the perfect finish to a pretty exciting weekend. Brighton versus Spurs. Yeah. Spurs have done it again.
Spurs being Spursy.
They've taken, I don't even know. They just...
Yeah.
They should have put this game away.
Yeah,
I mean,
definitely.
Thinking 2-0 up, you think they had put the game away. But Brighton second half were insane. And Spurs just crumbled, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, even in the first half, the warning signs were there. Matoma was in so much space, getting so many crosses into the box or balls across the face of goal. Minte was in a lot of space. He probably should have scored a goal. I think it was in the first or second half before he did already. Danny Welbeck had a shocking miss, but he rectified it. But Spurs, I guess this is the volatility that we've seen under Ange, in that the high line is so effective, but if someone's not on it, it's absolute disaster.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, this kind of almost chalks out that 3-0 win against United. You have to follow that up with a win, again, especially if you go 2-0 and you could go 3-0 up against Brighton. I mean, you have to, that could be a huge point in your season, but then, you let this lead go and you go and lose 3-2. That almost chalks out the good that was done. Now they're back to square one
again. The confidence is probably even lower now.
Yes, yeah. You've gone and you've tossed away a good lead. You could have, Brendan Johnson actually had a very good game in this one. He maybe should have done better to get Spurs further ahead. But, you go and you and the way they conceded the goals it was just sloppy defending, Yeah, I think it's just, and well done with Brighton. I mean, Brighton have been one of and they're chasing. They really are. I think Brighton, worth mentioning now, realistically for a top 4, top 5 finish, they are hunting there, and they've been one of even though they've been a bit sloppy.
Points wise, it hasn't been there, but performance wise, they've been
one of the best. They've been so consistent, and I didn't see Danny Welbeck being one of the form forwards of the start of the season, but we're back in 2011 apparently. So, let's get Paul Pogba. I've heard Paul Pogba's had his ban reduced. Get him back to United. Let's go right back to the 2010s. But yeah, I mean, well done with Brighton. Well done to Brighton, should I say. They've started the season incredibly well, and they are realistically hunting that top 4, top 5 finish with Villa and Spurs.
I think the top 8 this season, after 7 games, if we have the table,
it's tight up there.
Here, I think Liverpool, 1 point clear, but between 4th or 2nd to 5th is 3 points, and then from 4th all the way down to 10th is only 4 points.
Yeah.
So it is a really tight. I mean, it's still early, but it's no one can afford to drop points at this point in time.
Exactly.
Well, thanks for joining us, guys. That has been Mixing with the DJ's review of Game Week 7. Like we said, I hope you enjoy the international break. You probably won't, though no one does. Thanks for joining me, Dill. And don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, etc., etc. Tell us if we're stupid. Let us know what you thought of the games. Should Liverpool have conceded a penalty? I think we both agree they should have. But I'm biased, so no. But yeah, thanks for joining, Dill.
Thanks for tuning in, guys.